Well, today I've been asking you about those butterflies in your tummy. They can come when you're feeling nervous or excited, even hopeful or joyful. So why do we get these butterflies? Psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens. I had a chat with her about exactly this. Dr. Jo, what do they mean when they say that they have butterflies in their tummy?
So we've got what we call the gut-brain axis, and there's a lot of work, if you're interested to read more in the area, about what happens between the connection between the brain and the stomach. And so what happens is our brain detects threat. That's one of the biggest functions of our brain, is to go, what's going to go wrong? Which sounds very pessimistic, but it's served us well so far.
That's what our brains do sometimes.
Yes, that's right. So it's very normal. So what it will do is our brain will flip on that fight or flight response, and the chemical messages start getting sent through the body. Blood gets redirected to all the muscle groups because it thinks that we're about to deal with the lion or whatever it is. And the nerves in our stomach notice these changes and they send the signals back. So that's where you're getting that fluttering. So it's almost like your stomach saying, me too, I'm nervous, as well as whatever we picked up on in our brain.
Yeah, so we're feeling it there.
Yeah, we absolutely are. So that was a very simplistic description I gave of it, but I think that's probably
makes sense.
The essence of what's going on there.
Is there a difference between butterflies from that nervous energy before you go on stage, for example, or butterflies for excitement or love even?
No, not a lot. Not a lot of difference. But what happens is, if you think about it physically, it's very similar. And the example I often give is when one of my sons was young and he was desperate to go on a roller coaster ride that some may have been on, called the Tower of Terror. And I often use the example with my students is that if someone had come along with physiological monitors at that moment, as we were standing side by side in the line about to go on it, you wouldn't have known what was happening for us emotionally, other than you would have seen lots of activation. Both of it, our heart rates would have been up, our pupils would have dilated, all those things that we talk about. Now, one of us was having the best day of our lives because it was the first time on the ride, and the other one was his mother. So, but to your point, and you said this right at the start, Susan, is that excitement and anxiety are often very difficult to discern if we just look at the physical data. But what we do as humans is we label it. And probably to step ahead a little bit in the conversation, what I'm often saying, particularly when I work with athletes, and you talked about stepping onto stages, you talk to lots of people and you do that yourself, you step onto a stage, is that one of the things that can be really helpful for us is to understand that when we get that feeling in our stomach and we tell ourselves it's butterflies, maybe it's just excitement in disguise.
Yeah. I often have the conversation, why do I do this to myself? But then I say, actually, it's something that I want to do.
Yes.
And because usually when I'm stepping onto a stage, it's for a cause or something that means a lot to me. So that's how I have that conversation in my mind to, this is not something that's dangerous.
No. And the other thing is, it's something that you're particularly in this example, you're very good at it and you're going to do well at it. And you said yes to it in the first place, like you said, for lots of different reasons. I think reminding ourselves of that as well is that we're choosing to do these things, because if I really don't want to get on the roller coaster, then go and tap out and my husband can go on there. I think that's an important thing for us to understand, is that we're choosing to do these things. And it's also your body's way of saying, hey, guess what, Susan, you're ready to do something exciting.
Yes.
And so that is, if you didn't care at all, you would have none of that, and it probably wouldn't be as good a performance.
Yeah. I think that the care factor is an important thing for me anyway when I'm trying to calm those butterflies down. You're hearing from Dr. Jo Lukens. So can butterflies, though, be a sign of something more serious than just a bit of nerves?
Yeah, it could be, because I think what we need to think of it's a signal. So the feeling of butterflies in the tummy is a signal about something. We've used lots of examples today of sort of things that we choose to do, and we step onto stages and go on fun rides and all of those sorts of things. But there's absolutely the case that we could feel butterflies in scenarios we don't want to put ourselves into, or it could be an early sign of danger. So it's always, with all the signals that we send ourselves, it's always worth paying attention to it, noticing it, because the earlier you notice it, the earlier you can do something about it. It's a signal that we can use as a little piece of data about ourselves, and then we use our wisdom to decide what do we want to do about this particular thing.
Yeah. It sounds like understanding the science behind those butterflies can actually kind of help.
Yes, I think thinking about when did you last experience butterflies in the stomach, or what is it that we know about it. And I think what I've always found really helpful with it is just to go, there's an interesting piece of data.
Yeah.
I'm just about to step on this stage and I've just noticed I've had this particular feeling in my stomach. So what's happening there? Because if I push it away and try not to think about it, then it doesn't really go away. So it's worth looking at it, having a moment thinking about it, interpreting it, and then if you need to, employing a strategy to help you manage it.
I feel like I got butterflies a whole lot when I was a child at school, maybe because of those class presentations and those sorts of things. These days, I get the butterflies a whole lot less. It is more for public speaking events and things like that. But I find that I'm talking with my son about those butterfly moments for him. How do we coach other people, whether that is as a parent or a coach or a teacher, to calm those little butterflies?
Yes. And I think you've tapped into a really important point for all of us to think about as adults with wisdom. Part of the reason that we've been able to navigate the butterflies in the stomach over the years is through exposure and experience. So something for us that we might say to someone, and this is probably what I would suggest is not the phrase to say, is, oh, don't worry about that. That's nothing to worry about, because in front of you, you have a child who is worrying.
Yes.
And maybe when you were that age, you worried as well. So I think what's really useful, the really useful thing, and this is a great parenting strategy, is to acknowledge what the child is communicating to you. So it sounds to me, what I've heard you say is that you're feeling nervous about giving the talk at school tomorrow. So start there. And so you validate and you've told the child that you've heard them. And you might say something like, that makes sense to me. I can remember when I was your age that I used to feel nervous doing that too, if that's true for you. And then you might say something like, what I used to find helped me is I would take some breaths and I'd think about my feet in my shoes. Let me show you how I used to do it. Like that, something very simple like that. And then if they seem to respond to that, you could say, do you think that could work for you? Should we practice it now? Should we practice as if you're on stage tomorrow? As we know, rehearsing is always a great way to get ourselves focused on it as well. So I think a couple of little points in there. So to acknowledge the child's experience, to perhaps share a time that that you have empathy of having a similar experience, if that's what's true for you, and then maybe sharing a little strategy to try.
That's psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens. It's nearly time for your 11 o'clock ABC News. Let's get some butterflies happening.